I mean, I think like misogyny is something that goes to the heart of the society we currently live in. We live in a patriarchy, right? Women's bodies are disposable objects as far as a great deal of men are concerned. And I think that the police in general are a particularly egregious example of that. We heard from one former undercover police officer, Graham Coates, who said the attitudes towards women, minorities and homosexuals within Special Branch was much worse than the rest of the police, and that the attitudes within the SDS would have been shocking even within Special Branch. So we're talking a pretty extreme sort of views. Certainly, like when we had the few times that there were female officers in the SDS, they were kind of peripheral figures that only appeared for a few years when there was a specific reason, like infiltrating the Greenham Common Women or the Women's Liberation Front in the 70s, where they really couldn't not have a woman do that role. It was a boys' club. And from what we've heard, particularly from Peter Francis, about the language that was used, it was a rape gang that was covering for each other and celebrating the sexual conquest they had of women in the field. I mean, basically, the police were looking to protect their reputation because they weren't doing their jobs properly when it came to investigating racist murders. I mean, they weren't targeting the far right in any way. Because underlying reasons because of institutional racism. And when that was called out, they were deploying undercover police against the people who were calling it out to try and neuter that threat. I mean, we've seen memos where they talk about the #1 issue in South East London being the Lawrence family and the outspoken nature of their campaign. Between now and Christmas, we'll be hearing from 3 undercover officers. We'll first hear from James Thompson, who used the cover name James Straven and stole the identity of a dead child, Kevin Crossland. He'll be questioned about his deployment, which was into the animal rights movement. We'll be hearing from 3 women, 2 that he deceived into long-term relationships, Ellie and Sarah, as well as a woman called Wendy, who he had a long-term friendship with. Particularly with James Thompson, his deployment, though, like many of the other officers, lasted for about a period of about 5 years. He stayed in touch with 2 of these women for 20 years. Though he claimed to have moved to Australia, he would send occasional emails asking for explicit photographs and then meeting up for romances and sex with one of these women. He ended up confessing to her that he was an undercover officer, which led to her ending contact. It was in 2018, so 3 years after the inquiry had started, which kind of beggars belief, really. We'll also be hearing from the family of Kevin Crossland. Kevin Crossland was a child who died in 1966 in an aeroplane accident. James Thompson stole that identity and used it as part of his legends. By the time he did that, this was no longer sort of like regular practice for the undercover cops. He did it off his own back, supposedly, though it appears that he got the help of other undercover officers to do that. Then later on, we'll be hearing from Peter Francis. Peter Francis is the undercover officer who used the cover name Peter Black. He is the one who went whistleblower. In many ways was the reason why a lot of the things got set in motion that led to the inquiry, along with the actions of the women who were deceived into long-term relationships, who really kind of exposed the whole thing. But he played a significant role in that. There'll be 12 civilian witnesses before he gives evidence, which is a great deal more than we're used to for most of the undercover officers. He's been criticised very heavily by the police, unsurprisingly, because he's gone whistleblower. His former colleagues have no love for him. Obviously, as well, he was an undercover officer and he filed a great many disparaging reports about activists. So despite the fact he's gone whistleblower, there's a lot of criticising from our side as well. So that'll be particularly interesting. Then just before Christmas, we'll be hearing from Mark Jenner. Mark Jenner used the cover name Mark Cassidy. He deceived a woman called Alison into a relationship for over 5 years, of which 4 he cohabitated with her. She was one of the women who was featured in the ITV documentary Undercover: Love and Lies Exposed. And because of her job at the time, she had a video camera and she made a whole bunch of home videos that he features in. So people might have seen footage of him as Mark Cassidy in her life. We heard during the opening statements, we heard things from an opening statement from S, which is Mark Jenner's ex-wife. He had a young family when he was deployed undercover. She says that, though he was supposedly like totally lost in his undercover role, that he was coming home at 5 or 6 o'clock every morning and staying until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, Monday to Friday, where he played an active role in the home. He looked after the children. He was physically present in their marriage, but then he went away and spent the rest of his time with Alison, going on holiday with her, supposedly building a life with her, promising her children, going to couple counselling when children didn't seem to be happening, before eventually disappearing out of the blue, and leaving her in a state of distress. She'll be giving evidence as well as some of the other people that he spied upon. There'll be a lot more witnesses next year, but I'll leave that till another time.